Telltale is back with a new game, guys. I've waited a very long time for Telltale to return. I'm sure by the fact that I made an entire video about Telltale, you know by now that they are one of my favorite game creators. Earlier this year, Telltale announced that they weren't going to be releasing The Wolf Among Us Season 2, which I was kind of sad about. I'm not going to lie, I think that The Wolf Among Us would have been a much stronger foot for them to release on, but nevertheless, I'm glad that they're back regardless. They've returned with a game called The Expanse, based on an already existing IP, as they do, with the backstory of Captain Drummer. I personally went into this game not really knowing anything at all about The Expanse. I didn't watch the show or see really anything else, so I was really excited to see what they had in store. So as of right now, I've played all of episode 1 and 2, and that's what they have released. I was excited to hear that they were going to actually release every week this time rather than every month. So join me today as I go through each episode and decide what I liked about them, what I didn't like, and what I hope to see more of in the future. Let's get into it. So in episode 1, you are Captain Drummer. I mean, you're not a captain when you start out. You handle the ship and handle the crew and make sure everything's running properly. But the captain is this other guy named Cox, which is just an excellent name for an asshole, who ultimately tries to screw you over. This is not really much of a spoiler. Actually, the first thing you see is Cox about to get thrown out of an airlock by you, the character, potentially at least. So you kind of already understand what kind of character you're dealing with. I'm not going to lie, it's not really my favorite story trope whenever people start with the beginning being the end. It's kind of cliche to me.
I feel like, we should start our stories where they begin, not start them where they get interested.
Get out.
What?
But I do like that you got the choice at the end of the episode. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You're a scavenger with a crew that's on the brink of mutiny that really hasn't had any luck out in space. This is a future dystopian world where Earth is kind of in the shitter and people inhabit Mars. I'm sure Elon Musk somewhere is creaming at the thought of this game. Regardless, Cox says that there's one big last job that's going to be a big payout for you and the crew, or at least mostly you. You end up finding a shipwreck and a lot of things ensue. Now I want to take this moment to point out one thing that I didn't really enjoy about this game.
Disappointed!
Well, it's interesting. I enjoyed it and I didn't enjoy it all at the same time. Alternative to other Telltale games, this game has a very wide open explorable area. There's a segment of the game that you're really just floating around and searching things in a wide open space. No pun intended. On the one hand, I like to see Telltale revolutionizing their gameplay, as in pretty much every past Telltale title, it's been a bottle episode where you can kind of only walk around in one specific area, or whatever area is presented to you at the time. I like the visuals of the wide open space that you venture around. I like the mechanics of the zero gravity or gravity boots. But it also starts to feel like it suffers from a bit of Breath of the Wild syndrome, as a lot of everything around you isn't exactly interactable. And even if it is, it's kind of your character looking at something and saying, huh, I didn't think they had shifters in the backlights. You know what I mean? Like, there's not really anything being said there. You're just kind of looking at something. And I would have rather not flown all this way just to say that. It feels like a unique way of padding runtime, which I know that Telltale likes to do, but I hope to see this dissipate as time goes on, and as the story depthens. Regardless, as you search this wreck, you get a lot more information on what happened to the ship. You get ship logs here and there telling you different pieces of information to help you puzzle piece it all together. It's definitely enjoyable, but ultimately I felt like this was all very tutorial-esque of what you come to expect later in the game, which is not uncommon for Telltale's first episodes. I mean, if I remember correctly, even the first episode of The Walking Dead was a bit on the slow side. They want to teach you how the mechanics work and how the dialogue works, and most importantly, get you to understand the characters that you will be playing with. On that note, I like the decisions that were given in this game. They were dicey when they needed to be dicey, and they definitely had their hard points. Decisions definitely feel like they matter a little bit more. I'll get into that a little bit more in the second episode review. But at least from the first episode standpoint, I think that this was a solid first episode for Telltale. Alright, on to episode 2. Now, I won't lie, episode 2 was a little bit of the same as episode 1. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely new decisions and definitely new things happening between the crew and your character, but it certainly feels like a lot of the same of what you actually physically play. You're floating around scavenging for supplies while also dealing with the fact that your supplies are dwindling on the ship. You're also dealing with the rising pirate threat that you spoke to. There's a really cool sequence where you're shooting at the missiles that they're shooting at you, and I do appreciate the rising action that they are definitely trying to make. Aside from the action sequences that happen in the episode, they also start to work more on joining you and the crew and really caring about what happens to them. As your relationship with Maya blossoms, as you and Khan become a lot more close, and the two brothers continue their journey of being comedic relief. Again, all in all, I'm not mad at anything that's happening in these episodes. In fact, it's all very good and very tip-top shape of Telltale. But I will say that I'm a little bit lacking in connection to the story itself. I'm intrigued with the plot of trying to find the treasure. I'm also intrigued with the antagonists that are the pirates. But again, I think it all rests in the pacing. It's worth noting that these episodes are only about 1 hour in length, which is considerably lower than what they're usually making in the past Telltale games. Typically, their episodes will sit somewhere between 2.5 hours to even 3 hours at maximum length, with maybe an even extra long last episode. I've definitely seen people around the internet complain that they're paying full price for what is definitely a shorter game, and for what they are of course getting in a shorter amount of time, which I won't lie, I can definitely understand as I play through these episodes. What you're left with is kind of like you're playing a television show, which in theory doesn't sound bad, but when you take into account that 90% of the time is taken up by you flying around, and the number of decisions are definitely cut in half from what they previously are in a game that solely rests on decisions, you can see where things can get a bit dicey in a bird's eye perspective. If they've decided to go with this type of format, it is what it is, and I'm fine with it. But in order to satiate what crowds are already expecting from a Telltale title, I would like to see different locations, maybe more decisions crammed into a shorter amount of time, that dramatically change the story and the course of all the characters. I'm assuming that this might be what they do later in the story, but I really don't know. For all I know, we could get to the treasure and it's another ship that they want us to just fly around looking for things in, commenting on things here and there, and just picking up random items just like we did in the first episode and in this episode. Overall, I'm feeling very middle about all of this. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. I think I am enjoying what I'm playing, but it's just leaving a lot to be desired. I want to see a focus on variation rather than a focus on just dialogue. A lot of the gameplay is you walking around and talking to somebody on your radio, which makes for good gameplay here and there, but not for the entirety of the episode while you do these monotonous platformer type movements. I'm intrigued to see what they're going to do next with this story. I'm intrigued where they're going to take the storylines. I think right now I'm very intrigued with the Virgil storyline and what's happening with his character, so I hope to see more on that front. But I definitely want more from this title. If you have any other ideas on what you want to see in this game, let me know in the comments. Leave a like if you like the video, subscribe if you want to subscribe. I release videos every Sunday, and I'm going to go watch some more speculation videos on what's going to happen next. I am at the very least intrigued on, what the next step is for the story. So this is the fade out. This is me doing the fade outs. It's very hot in Texas. Even though it's raining, it's humid and I'm disgusted right now.